Bing, we're live. This is a local support pair programming hangout. It's Sam squared, Sam doubled the action, double the value.
Something like that, yes.
Indeedy. So the first thing I was going to show you, Mr. Overloop, this little trick of how to start a sort of a pairing hangout. I mean, I wonder if we ultimately want to change how we do this, but the thing that we have set up that I've got a few other Makers grads set up with this is, if I just go to my screen share there, and you can see, so we have the local support project location within the Agile Ventures. We basically, if you're logged into local support, and possibly also if you join the project here, we get this Starter Hangout on Air button, which you can go to and click on. And what that does is it creates a hangout, just as you create hangouts before, but it makes sure that the hangout is one that's recordable.
Okay.
So that's kind of a convenience. And then as a consequence, sort of a byproduct of that is then, if we go and have a look, what it does is that it also, when the hangout comes live, it also loads it with our plugin that talks back to Slack, and it pushes the link, into the channel here, and it also puts it into the pairing notifications with an alert, and also into the general channel.
So people can join whenever they want.
Indeed, exactly. And so it's sort of it's all about this vision that we have for Agile Ventures. It's kind of like an open plan office for the world. So the Slack environment basically creates a setup where anybody who's interested can drop in, and then also, because it's a recordable, when we finish the recording, all of the project videos you see are here. So you can see here Jana and Zivko and Raj were all doing that earlier this week, and it's part of this open development thing. Of course,
when we pair as a group, when we pair, we also do the same.
That's right. I mean, it's not like it's not required. And I know, for example, I think Zivko and Jana, they like to use Screen Hero, and it's but yeah, this is a good way of. I personally, I'm a big fan of just the GitHub Pong over Hangouts as a way of pairing, and I mean, the concept is open development, and so someone else who then, how does this pairing thing work, gets to see that and so on. I mean, as I show more and more people how to do that, I keep thinking, well, certainly I think recently, maybe what we need to make this easier, because would just be to have something where you could do like a Hangout thing from, for your project. I mean, that's what we had set up at Makers. Maybe if we had a more sophisticated version that would allow people to actually start it from the Slack, that might be easier. That might be better. Anyway, it's one of the things we continue to evolve. But enough of that.
You have to pay money for that to have the Hangout integration in Slack?
I don't think we do. I think that's just a standard thing. I wonder if I can even. I don't think we have it set up. I'm fairly sure it doesn't require. I just found the random channel. I think it doesn't work for R1 here at the moment. Yeah, it's the Google. I was just trying here. You need to add the Google Hangouts integration, and I think we probably add Google Hangouts integration. Yeah, I mean, we might not be able to use it. Sorry, I'm just playing around here with all this stuff. I mean, we may have reached our. Oh yeah, no, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it working. So it's now working in our. Actually, share my screen. I've just set it up. Actually, I thought we were at our limit of the number of. With the way Slack works, as you probably know, is the model is that it's supposed to have like there's a limit to the number of integrations, and it says that. But actually, I was able to just add this one here. But so this is this Google Hangouts integration. Hangout in a channel, customize name, choose the news name that this integration will post as, customize icon. See, what I would like is if this had the ability here to say, make it a recordable Hangout. That would kind of be pretty huge for us. The problem is with these Hangouts is it creates them, but then they're not recordable, and you can't, you can't switch them to. You can't switch them to Yeah.
One Agile Ventures project could be to make a Slack plugin.
Indeed, and I mean, in fact, what we have is the thing that does the stuff for us is this Agile bot, and that pings to Slack. And actually, there's no reason why we couldn't make the Agile bot. So that's this guy over here. There's no reason why we couldn't make this guy, receive instructions from Slack, and then possibly even configure that and make that available to other people. That would be an interesting direction to take the Agile bot project, actually, which is something. It's funny, and it seems to have there's a bugbear. Sorry, while we're just on the subject, because for everybody else, it just seems to work fine. But I don't know if you noticed me deleting. For some reason, for me, it always posts an empty YouTube link before it posts the real one. I don't know why. I mean, it's only me. It's only me. It's like specially picking me out. I think I was rude to it one time. So anyway, but yes, interesting. But I mean, that's something for us to kind of evolve. Oh well, I gotta leave it on the screen share. Definitely something for us to iterate on as we move forward. Yeah, I mean, I think because what would be nice would be to have the complete flexibility to start from the web page, start from the Hangout, and that it cross posts and sorts everything out. So, so you have been a busy boy. Yes, so we've got the name validation set up here, and yeah, this is just a beautiful thing of it may seem like completely trivial, but just to have just to have this there, that's it makes it from the perspective of a project manager, in this case myself, I'm like, oh yes, I can almost instantly understand whether this is what it is, what the scope of it is, whether it's working. I've lost my chocolate. Put my chocolate on. Anyway, you've probably got all the good chocolate over there in Belgium, haven't you? Oh well. I thought I brought some chocolate up with me and I've lost it. Oh no, found it. Yeah. Any thoughts about this pull request at the moment?
No, that one was raised. Next one, the description one that I covered already.
Yes, actually, I'm just looking at this name value. I'm just having a thought actually here about one way that it could slightly be different. So the interesting thing to note here is that we've got this validates in here, and then you're actually building an organization using Factory Girl, and we're kind of like, so this unit test is hitting the database, which is not actually completely ideal. Have you heard of shoulda? Yeah. So I think actually we could probably make that. I mean, not that it's the kind of, we should necessarily worry so much about performance in every single context, but so I think we can use shoulda validate.
Yeah, but then that's only with the built-in validators, right?
I don't.
If I build my own validators like I plan to do for the postcode,
sure.
I don't know where that's going to work. So that's the reason why I didn't take the shoulda.
Right. Although in this case, for this one, we could just do the validate presence of.
Yeah.
And that would make this test run faster. Yeah.
Calling on the database.
Yeah. Because I think we've got mass assignment, allow value. Yes. Let's just, we'll put that in there as a placeholder. That's just something to oh, what have I just done? I don't do that.
Well, I can easily update it. So that's,
yeah.
And I can do exactly the same for description.
Yes. And then but so the description one, you were saying, yes, you've got some other concerns.
If you have a look at the description one, you notice that I had to change lots of feature tests.
Okay.
Through the description.
Yes.
Well, it's all done now. So, but the question is, do we then really want the description to be compulsory? Apparently, when the project was set up, it was considered not compulsory.
Well, and I think that's more a reflection of just it was sort of set up, and that it wasn't that we kind of went through each individual field and said, should this be compulsory or not? It was more a question of just let's get something working. We were following very much this procedure of what's the simplest thing we can do to provide something that the client can use. I mean, and it hasn't. The interesting thing here about the validations is it kind of, if we look at the pivotal on this, you know, I think it's not something that's really been driven by the client. It's not the case that we've had lots of users using the system and trying to add things that have no names or no descriptions. I think it's more like, if we look at this, this is you know, John, who's one of the long-standing developers for this, is that he's, you know, identified this, and then and he sort of said, well, maybe we should have this restriction on there. And it's sort of, you know, it sort of says, it sort of makes sense that we should have these, that I guess particularly in the situation if we're in, I don't know, the develop server.
But Sam, I mean, I understand that you want to have everything client driven. This is mainly so you also want to create nice code where validation seems to be just being part of writing code that interacts with databases.
Yeah, although, I mean, you know, I think it's interesting to ask the question. You know, there are stuff that people just sort of do because it's being done. I think it's very interesting to answer the question about, you know, is it really necessary? There is an extent to which, you know, I think there's a much stronger argument, for example, for email address validation and website URL validation, in as much as, you know, there are things that will go wrong, you know, in the system if the email address is not valid or the URL is not valid. In terms of the organization name and description, you know, I mean, I think we can, in principle now, we can just create one that has absolutely nothing in it.
Yeah.
And so clearly we can end up in this sort of state that seems undesirable. Although, you know, who knows in some ways. I mean, you're saying there about how validations relate to the database, and they do, but if we think about them, validations they're describing constraints on the domain model. And the domain model is something that we derive from our interaction with the client, you know, as a description of the world as it works according to, you know, our users. I mean, you'd be thinking about, for example, you know, you might have a system with customers with names, and you might have a constraint. Well, they've got to have a first name and a last name. But then what about people like Sting or Madonna, who technically don't, you know, they have one name? And so those constraints, although they are constraints that you're applying on the database, or maybe you're applying them to forms as with the client-side validations, I think it's still relevant to ask about what they mean in terms of the domain model. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. But so yeah, it certainly seems like, although we haven't encountered it as an issue, ending up in this situation where, you know, I mean, one could argue that perhaps rather than the validation, one should have something that you know, it automatically filled in the term, you know, unnamed, or, you know, like I put placeholders in there or what have you. You know, there's an interesting question there about, you know, whether, I'm going to say there, I'll just log in here. You know, like whether someone should necessarily, I get that guy as a non, I think I've just done that as a proposed organization there, so we're going to see pending proposed organizations there. That's this one here. You know, whether it would be acceptable to have that just as a, you know, just the name, should the description. I mean, I think we did, as a consequence of this developer bring it up, we then did discuss it with the client, and the client was saying, oh yeah, I think they should have a name and a description. So I think that's reasonable in that context. If we go back to where you are with the pull request, and in terms of how this is affecting the feature tests, it's sort of a little irritating that happens. But yeah, it seems like a reasonable side effect in some ways. I mean, it's a little bit annoying because we've got these different files like user reports, fixed associations, feature. Let's have a go on code base. User report.
Especially because Cucumber takes such a long time to finish, so it's like.
Yeah, it will indeed. Well,
before you know what's happening. So.
Yeah, we are on the verge of making the Cucumber things all run a lot faster, actually.
All right.
By this new sandbox as one of the other pull requests that's in place. I can also show you a way to speed it up right now. But yes, I mean the other thing with these, is it this one? This one doesn't exist. Yeah, it's sort of, you know, adding the address, sorry, the description column here does not really in any way help this file communicate what it needs to communicate, if you know what I mean. In as much as it's kind of background stuff that is unrelated to, you know, what it's trying to communicate. So it's a little bit of an irritating side of it. But yes, since you've got it done, I don't see any reason not to have it in there.
Would I have been able to do it a different way?
Well, I mean, what we could, you know, conceivably, another way to look at it is if we've got these, given the following organizations exist, you know, we could be passing in, you know, we could be setting, you know, we could create a new thing like this that has, you know, exists with defaults. We could be creating a new step that, you know, one could be, if we felt very strongly, that's led to a big deterioration in the quality of our other feature tests, then we could be creating something here where, you know, these table hashes, like this, it did. I mean, this is with the description default, and we could basically got organizations table hashes. We'd be doing like this. We could be doing, you know, something like this where we did we'll want to take each of them and add that. So we've got there a series of different hashes. Even probably a simpler way to actually go in here and just do org. This is kind of hacky, but
yeah,
like that. So we could be doing that. But you know, it's not necessarily such a bad thing in as much as kind of what we're doing here is we're adding you know, something that's, you know, a new constraint on our domain model, and what that means is I mean, really the features are in the high level, they're in the high level language of our domain. So it makes some sense that our high level description of the domain is changing as we adjust the constraints on the domain. But there's certainly ways around it. But I think I probably wouldn't want to do this unless we felt that we were just.
But you would actually also have done what I did.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, what I might be doing is I might be looking. It might also be causing me to look at some of these files and to be thinking about refactoring them. I mean, there's just that one that we were looking at there. You know, and we're talking about fixed associations. This is an admin user. I want to say all invited nodes with their orgs, and you know, when I look at this, you know, the actual, in fact, all of this background, or at least particularly the background related to these things here, seems, you know, particularly because, you know, the information about like that's actually being exposed here is not being reused down here at all. That's different in some other cases. I know if we have a look, for example, here's our basic one. We've got, you know, the information that's actually being exposed here is then being represented here.
Yeah.
You know, you see what I'm saying? So I think in this context, it's very important for the description to be here, because we're then expecting to be able to see that here. And if this was kind of hidden, you know, and then that would be problematic. But that starts to suggest to me that, you know, some of these things we could encapsulate this into a given, you know, certain things are set up as default things. And, you know, to the extent that these things are common across several admin things, then they could be, you know, pulled out of there and not something that we necessarily had to have in all of them. But what I certainly wouldn't do about that is, I mean, I might create a chore for that. I certainly wouldn't bog down this pull request by doing those additional things. So I think the approach that you've taken here is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So I mean, again, here that could also be with the shadow. But I guess is that yes. You're unblocked now in that regard.
The blocker will come, I think, when it comes to email and URL, because there were lots of errors I didn't understand where they were coming from.
Well, should we maybe just anticipate that block? Should we just? Do you want to add in? Do you want to share your screen with me and add in?
I had just started with the postcode. Not sure where I'm at the moment. Wait, I'll share my screen with you, and then you can.
Please.
Cancel. Just the entire screen, right? Can you see my screen now?
I believe I do. Yes, I do.
All right. Now, let's have a look where I'm at. Okay. I was looking at base organization and its spec. So, so I want to validate the postcode. So this line, and I already created a validator class, which maybe I shouldn't have done immediately because I already had done it in the previous one, so I knew how to do it. Normally, I would, of course, extract it only afterwards, but okay.
And is that something that that regular expression is something that you found online? Is it?
That regular expression actually was, yeah, that was a gist someone had. Just, yeah, makes it quite easy to check whether a postcode is a valid UK postcode or not.
That's. I mean, it's very interesting because I mean I think it's a very interesting question here about the process of validation. There is that, for example, there might be the situation where new postcodes are created to support what have you, and that this would be out of date. I mean, it's an interesting question here about how important it is to have the validation for the postcode. I don't know if you have any strong feelings about that, one way or the other.
Not really. I was thinking about how I would validate a postcode and say, well, I don't know except validating it in this way. How else? Postcode.
Well, what I might consider here is not validating the postcode, in as much as if someone puts a postcode in that's kind of incorrect, then it sort of leads to maybe it being placed in the wrong position on the map. But that's the kind of thing that the human being themselves can observe and take into account. It's sort of, I mean, it's interesting whether you think that. I mean, it ends up being corner cases, and maybe it's not even worth spending a moment thinking about it. But in my experience of programming over the last 30 years, I think often people put in constraints because they can put in the constraint, not necessarily because that's absolutely the right thing to do, or it necessarily improves. I mean, I don't know if you've had this experience. If you're in a, you're in a form and you're. I
would agree with you in this case, because I did it because it was written down here in the pivotal tracker as a requirement.
Right.
But I mean, I would be very happy just to leave that one out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, since you've done a bit of work on it, it's interesting and easy to leave it in there. I mean, the thing I was immediately thinking on that was, had someone already created a gem for that.
What are your feelings, Sam, on using a gem instead of adding my own regular expression there? Because I have the impression, I have my personal feeling is like, if I don't have to use a gem, I won't.
Oh, okay. Well, I think probably for me, I'm more on the side of almost I'd rather use a gem because I think when I write the code myself, that means that we're going to have to maintain that code. Whereas if there's a gem, that implies that there's an open source project potentially behind it. And so what that means is that kind of thing. So for example, say that the range of possible values for UK postcodes change. I mean, maybe that's pretty unlikely, but maybe it would. That's the kind of thing that I could then potentially fix by just doing bundle update, rather than having, and it may not be me. Part of it is thinking about the person who comes along afterwards and, their mechanism for maintaining the code. So yeah, I don't know. What's your motivation for avoiding using gems?
I don't know. It's just something that I don't like to use external elements in my program if I can avoid it. That's maybe just me, because I always had the impression the more I use, the slower the program gets. But I don't know whether that's the case in the case of gems.
And well, I think it can do. Although I think my approach would tend to be is I will certainly use gems, particularly to the extent that they are not hitting. I mean, I think there's another thing if they're hitting third-party services, but I absolutely love working with gems, and if I think performance is a feature, but it's not always the highest priority feature. So I would much rather use somebody's existing gem, and then if performance becomes an issue, I can move away from that. If you know what I mean. That's the way I tend to lead to. Yeah, I mean, I can see already. I'm just doing the search myself. I can see that there's a blog post where which you've kind of got the the custom validator from. Were you also seeing a kind of there's a gem called Post Office? Is that the one you were just looking at?
There's a gem called UK Postcode, which I'm just looking at the moment, which just actually makes a postcode validator that uses the gem. Which wouldn't change anything to my code, basically.
No, and that's kind of interesting to I would certainly start. I've got another one here called Post Office. I mean, it's the kind of thing that I would be very tempted to throw in just to the chat in the what it's called the Pivotal Tracker. Yeah, no, this is a Post Office there. So this one's saying it's a Rails gem. So no, this one here, I think the one I've just posted the link to, that actually this would actually, it works specifically with Rails, and it supports multiple countries, and it it works straight with Rails, and so like it's sort of it would reduce the amount of working code that we have to maintain directly, if you know what I mean. And this one would have the advantage that if the local support system wanted to be used in other countries, then that would be support that. Although I'm very wary of that. That's a very strange. It was a dangerous thing to go down to say, oh well, the people might use the system in this way or that way, or they might use and then you end up finding yourself building in this entire kitchen sink. And it's not clear if you're really kind of what kind of value you're adding to the system, and maybe you're making things too complex. Yes.
But there's another one that's a gem that's specifically for UK postcode.
Yes. Which I think, I mean, it has this advantage that I mean, in this case, because the actual code itself is relatively trivial, it's not necessarily going to be a big deal. But I think the upside in general is, given the arbitrary complexity of something, is you can take advantage of this bazaar of all of these open source projects. But if you need functionality for doing X. Let's forget about postcodes, just for doing X. And you found, there's 3 gems that do it, and you find that basically one of them is very active and has an active community around it. What that means is that moving forward, you can potentially take advantage of the changes and benefits that those people are throwing into that thing. Do you know what I mean? So Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing here is, I would say, the postcode validation is possibly lower priority. The way I would leaning is almost like that. There's that one gem, the post office gem, which supports multiple countries and what's the word? And fully integrates with Rails. I'm just going to add that other list. This one was the post office one gone. Rails, post office. That's this one. Right, I'll go back to my screen. And what was I going to say there? Post office, the Rails, use Rails validation, validates postcode.
Postcode, the last time it's been updated is 2013.
Yeah, so this one here. So have a look at this, and it says, yeah, this is 3 years ago. It's only got 1 star. You know, have a look at these other ones. You know, this one's a bit more active. You know, 7 months ago. This one here, not so much. Yeah, a bit more stars there. Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of, you know, and of course, then it's this question of how much time do we actually want to spend thinking about it. I mean, I quite like that this one has the full Rails integration. I mean, what would be interesting, I don't know, what's going to be kind of cool if they don't have it already, is, you know, for this one, do they even use, like, what would be nice to see was them using, you know, providing methods for actually using shoulda. You know, so if this is a custom one, like, you know, they could provide on top of that an active model matcher that would add to this list. And, you know, that would almost like be a little nice, you know, one could take this guy's stuff, and as it hasn't been very active, we're checking if it still works, and then doing a pull request to see if, you know, one could add a thoughtbot matcher specifically for that one.
Yeah.
But again, but we might say, oh, well, that's all, you know, kind of, we're just getting away from the point, really. What I'd be tempted to do here is you know, this is part of the agile process, is we could also come back to the client and sort of have a little chat about, you know, is that a problem that we've noticed, that people seem to be typing in the wrong postcodes? I mean, this is the other thing about whether the validation is kind of like over engineering, in as much as it's you know, the consequences in our site of getting the postcode wrong are they're not that serious. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can be fixed relatively easily, and no planes have crashed, no pacemakers have exploded as a result of it going wrong. And so potentially, you know, the more serious thing is if, particularly if emails are incorrect, and then what that means is that people who are, you know, trying to, there's various invitations that we sent out, and people, they won't go, and, you know, people will be unable to get control of their data online, and that so, you know, to a certain extent, there's an argument for using that information to direct where we focus our energy. Okay.
So can I just conclude, and then we park the postcode for the moment, and we ask the client?
Yes.
Because, yeah. And then I have a question for the email. Because it's so important that you can, as a local support, contact all the clients, would you make email compulsory?
Mm-hmm.
Because you first said only to make name and description a requirement when making a new organization, but you also required email.
Well, when you said, yeah, I mean, I was saying let's start by focusing on name and description, or title and description. You say about the email. Have I spoken to you about the I mean, I've just said just now that the email's important. Where are you getting the idea that the email should be compulsory? Is that something you've read?
Well, no, that's the question I have to you. Are we just gonna have an email validation?
Well,
make the format.
That's I think actually for the you know, for the purposes of this, I think probably email should not be. Well, again, whether it's actually required, I think that's you know, something that we should maybe check with the client, because the peculiarity of this this system is that part of the idea of the whole Harrow Community Network is that it's supposed to be providing a web presence to those people who are not necessarily very technologically sophisticated, and it might just be somebody who's, you know, they're doing a car share to take old people for cups of tea and this, that.
I remember that argument you're saying, that it's possible that people have not much experience with internet you want to make the threshold to join the site as low as possible.
Absolutely. And so, you know, there's also somebody might be about to put their organization in, and they might think, oh, well, I don't really want to put my email address, but I want to put my phone number. I mean, the interesting thing, they, for example, on this screen, they might not realize that they can switch, that they can make their email address private. They might just see public and say, oh, well, I don't want to put my, oh, but phone numbers are private. Okay, I'm going to put my phone number in. And, you know, what I think we really want to do is sort of make it as welcoming as possible. So if you then leave off your email address and then it says, no, you must put your email address in, then we potentially lose someone who might be reaching out to us. And I'm sure our clients, having had the person come in, if they only had they wouldn't say, oh, I mean, I'm sure that the client will say, oh, it'd be nice if they did put an email address in, but I don't think they would say they have to have one. You know, particularly if they put in a phone number, then they can then phone them up and start a conversation, and you know they'll have a meeting with them, and they might say, oh, well, you do have an email address. Oh, actually, well, you know, you can have it as private, and so on. You get the idea. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I mean, I think. But so the validate, rather than making its presence required, if someone does actually type in an email address and they, you know, they're doing like Sam at Agile, Agile Ventures, and they do like .org like this, you know, and it's sort of fairly clearly a mistype, then alerting them to the fact that they've mistyped it seems like a nice and sensible thing to do, doesn't it? If we can do it automatically.
Okay.
So that would of course another client may totally overrule me, but that would be my intuition at the moment.
So to concretely, do I move ahead with email validation and URL validation?
Yes, and again I would say, you know, one step at a time. I think in terms of validating them as being correct rather than requiring their presence, I think we certainly could. I was interested. Can you show me the errors that you get if you try and do email validation?
Yeah, I haven't yet created a separate branch for that, so they're still in the old.
Yeah, you could even just, if you want to pop to the old branch and just show them to me. Given that we, you know, anticipate that we're about to see them again, then
slash Tomatoes. Oh, come on.
No, take your time.
No, I don't know what I still have. It's all there. Okay. Where did I see it? I'm just in RSpec, so it'll run a lot of errors. And it will take a while.
Oh, one thing that you can do here, don't change anything there now, is you're familiar with, perhaps from the command line, you can pass in parameters to reduce the output from RSpec.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's something that can slow that down. I mean, you could also run those individually. Anyway, you found, okay.
You know, so I don't know at the moment which I don't remember at the moment which file.
Yeah, not a problem. Okay, so you're getting now. While there's obviously clearly a host of errors. Can you just show me, just quickly take me to the code to show me the
well, this is categories.
Yeah, but rather than necessarily the test, show me the email validation that you used.
Okay. Basically, I made a separate validator class, and then in base organization.
Right. So there's just a validation in there.
Yeah, there we are.
Basically, so uniqueness true, presence true, email true. Yeah, I think that the uniqueness is probably something that we don't want.
And that was throwing some of the errors, and then this threw some of the errors. But then, even so, when I took that out,
Yeah, I would certainly remove the uniqueness and the presence in the first instance. But yeah, there may be other errors, but yeah, let's remove those quickly, and maybe what we can. So the thing to do, yeah, if you did the RSpec.
Let's have a look. Yeah, that's the postcode. Because I still had presence of postcode. Well, let's not validate that for the moment.
Yeah, just you can remove the
description presence true website. Okay, I think that's better. Now, I'm just going to run one and see what happens.
Sure.
So which parameters do you mean you can use?
Yeah, so you can use RSpec, and then you can do space hyphen FP.
Mm-hmm.
So if you even want to run all of them, it will then do it in a sort of much more. But so let's just have a look at the email can't be blank. So I mean, is that probably.
This was the postcode can't be blank. Shouldn't be.
I mean, you've got validates email there. Have you not got a? You've got a custom. So email there is the name of your email validator.
Where did you do that?
Oh, so I was just looking at your the code that you had up briefly from the model itself, and yeah, obviously you've removed uniqueness and presence. I mean, yeah. So you've got there. It says validates email and then email : true, and so that email there is corresponding to your email validator that you've got over there.
This allow blank.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and if somebody, yeah, I think certainly, because if somebody doesn't put the email in, then it's
Okay.
But having saved that, what I would be tempted to do is try running RSpec, just and then space minus FP.
Yeah.
Okay.
RSpec space FP, and then spec. Which one are we running? Models, post organization, edit. So that runs it without the output.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yes, it minimizes the output. So basically, it runs. Did it run there? The RSpec minus FP? Oh yeah. So basically, it will run like this, and it will give us an F or a dot. So that's telling us the set of failures that we've had. But what I would do now is, rather than trying to go up through all of that, which is sort of this is too short. Email can't be blank. Record invalid. Validation failed. Various things you've got there. Also, name can't be blank. Name is too short.
Weird. Oh, I know, but I know why, because I had added this. Sorry, this is. Edit. This is because I had added this, and I shouldn't have added that. And that's not the right one.
That was in the proposed organization.
Yeah. Spec models. I need to do not proposed organization, but is it just base organizations? No, organization spec.
Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting question about what validations we should have for proposed organization.
Yeah.
As well, but
wouldn't they be the same?
Well, they probably should be. I mean, but that's a kind of thing that also it would clearly be challenging if they weren't. But in fact, one can imagine a model in which, one, in order to encourage people to propose organizations, one didn't have any validations on proposed organization, and basically it would be up to you could put it in the hands of the human admin to see these things coming in and to reject them if it was clear that they weren't acceptable or not. It's I don't know, again, something to play with.
Okay. So now you see the errors. There's one error here: donation info. Please enter valid URL, which is strange because the URL is valid.
Oh, so no, in this case, but no, so if we look at this particular test, this corresponds to organization's URL attributes has returned.
Yeah, so that's organization spec. Well, line 592 is one of those.
Okay, so I mean, I might just go back to in my own code. So features, spec, models. We've got. No, we're talking about organization spec. Was it line 592?
592, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, Sam, I need to go in about 5 minutes.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Yeah, that's slightly odd to see that that's the case. So what I would say in this case is, yeah, I mean, I thought looking at it, we might just be able to quickly see that there was an issue there for some reason. I suspect, things related to factory girl and this, that, and the other. What I would be tempted to do there is, just work on the pure email one and get that in and even if you're getting errors locally, is just push the pull request up on that, and then that allows everyone else to quickly have a look and see the same thing and get to the bottom of it. That's definitely the way to go. Yeah.
All right. So to leave the pull request up, but I'll make a separate.
Yeah, make a separate one just for email.
Yeah. And then I'll see if it has the same errors, and then people can comment and have
absolutely, yes. And we'll maybe look at changing the other ones under to shoulda. But yeah, I think that's we're going in the right direction, definitely.
Just a moment, Sam.
No,
Dat ga je zelf wassen?
Ja, dat ga ik zelf wassen, ja.
Ik weet ook niet eens dat kan kosten.
Ja, dat maakt niet uit, het moet gebeuren. Hè, dus.
Zeker?
Ja.
Als ik een kostuum 10 euro kan.
Ja, dat kan goed 20 euro per stuk zijn. Dus,
Of hebben we ook.
Ja.
Kom terug.
Oké.
Maar ik ga om 4:30 door.
Ja, ik ga ook zo binnen door. Sorry, Sam, I'm back.
no worries. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, not today, tomorrow probably. But,
cool. Yeah, excellent. No worries. Well, good sort of doing that with you there. Nice to kind of like explore some of the different things associated with it, and yeah, maybe catch up with you tomorrow or whenever.
It's nice to do that because the code base is completely new for me. And
sure.
Is this a complicated code base, Sam?
Well, I would say that it's certainly more complicated than anything that you've encountered at Makers. Yeah. But I would say that, I mean, we've been working on this code base, various people around the world, part-time for 2 or 3 years. This is still quite simple compared to some code bases that you might encounter.
But my impression is, and maybe this is just my experience talking, maybe that there's a lot of clutter. Stuff that could be done easier.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yes. Yes, absolutely. No, this code base is certainly by no means, tight and clean, and that partly reflects the fact that we've had, volunteers of differing levels of experience working on it, over the course of 2 or 3 years. But that's actually not so different from what happens in companies, in that people will come in and they'll build a lot of code of one style, and then that person will leave and another person will come in and build a lot of things on top of it. And so in some ways, I think you'll find, I think in great companies that care about their code and care about the developers, you'll find larger code bases that are also make a lot of sense. That they're just the domain model is clear and that it's using all best principles or whatever. But there's equally companies who are being very successful, but are being dragged down by sort of sludges, and they've got they're relying upon using lots of bits and pieces of code bases, but they've they had contractors in to build a lot of it at one time, and then someone came in with this thing and moved it this way. You know what I mean? It can kind of be there's all sorts.
So it reflects real life in the company as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is this reflects to a certain extent the kind of code base that you might see out there, and I think you'll see better and worse and smaller and larger. But yeah, I think this is much more realistic in some ways than anything you've seen at Makers.
because it's just because the website doesn't have that much functionality. And when I looked at the code, I said, wow, there's a lot of code for what the website is doing. But
well, I'd say that there's, there's actually, there's a fair amount of functionality on the admin side. There's, there's other things that there are non-website related things to do with, like importing the data and so on. It's certainly the case that it's, the whole thing could be a lot. So I'm sure we could, with a focused effort, reduce the code base in size by 60% or something easily, and maybe further, and come up with a better system that we could build on more easily after that. But I think that's often true of the systems that you'll find out there in the wild, because the direction that the code base was going in at different points was was unclear, and then it changed and it pivoted and so on. So yeah.
But anyway, I found it very exciting to work on it.
Oh, it's great to have you involved, and yeah, good show. Yeah, I look forward to doing some more stuff with you soon.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Oh, likewise. Yeah. All right. Take care, man. See you soon. Have fun. Bye for now.